Welcome to the Fantasy Football Brothers YouTube channel. My name is Blake, and today we're going to be talking about the waiver wire and trading. So let's get started with the waiver wire. This is how it works. Upon the conclusion of the current week's games, all free agents can be found on the waiver wire. In order to add a player from the waiver wire, a fantasy manager must designate a player from their current roster to exchange for the free agent. Waivers traditionally clear on Wednesday mornings, but check your league settings as they may be different. Prior to waivers clearing, each fantasy manager has the opportunity to make as many claims as they wish for free agents. Be sure, though, if you make multiple claims, to prioritize them in favor of the player you want most, as this designation can be the difference between getting the player you want and missing out on a great free agent. Claims are processed based on the waiver order, typically determined by reverse standings in the league. So, for example, in a 10-team league, 10th place has first waiver priority. Once a team's first claim has been processed, their priority drops to last in the league. After all player claims have been processed, the remaining free agents can be added on a first-come, first-served basis prior to their team's kickoff. Let's talk about targeting players on the waiver wire next. Determine what's legitimate. This involves analyzing stats to help make your decision. Here's an example of an unreliable player. In PPR, be skeptical of a player who has most of their fantasy points coming from touchdowns, without otherwise reliable volume in the form of targets or receptions to support their weekly scoring. A great example of this from last season would be Hunter Henry. He had 50 catches and 9 touchdowns, which basically boiled down to catching a touchdown on approximately 20% of his catches. Another important thing is to take note when a player has short-term value because of injury to a relevant teammate. Running back handcuffs are an excellent example of valuable players to target. Let's look at Alexander Mattison, who last season averaged 21.7 fantasy points in the 4 games Dalvin Cook missed in 2021. Let's now discuss the art of buying low and selling high. First and foremost, don't panic after 1 week. If you drafted someone, there's probably a good reason. One bad week does not justify dropping them. If you roster someone that you aren't confident in long term, consider seeking out a trade first rather than releasing them to the waivers, as other managers in your league may still view that player as valuable. This is especially relevant if that player is coming off an unexpectedly big performance in the previous week. Depending on past performances, this can cause the player's perceived value to increase, which is known as selling high. Inversely, if one of your league mates are looking to trade a player coming off one or multiple poor performances, and you think that player is more valuable long term, make an offer at a reduced cost. This is known as buying low. As the season progresses, where a player was drafted holds less significance in determining their value. Their performance on the field is what matters most. Let's talk about how to negotiate a trade. Allow yourself time to negotiate a trade. Very rarely will the initial offer be accepted without any discussion. Have an idea of how you value your own players and your trade partner's players before entering discussions. Know your trade partner's team strengths and weaknesses. Don't go into trade discussions expecting position for position trades. For an example, a running back for a running back, a quarterback for a quarterback, a wide receiver for a wide receiver. It's very difficult to justify a trade one for one like that. Trades often work best when your team's strengths are your trade partner's weaknesses and vice versa. Offer something that would help improve on their weaknesses while also not creating weaknesses on your own team. Enter trade discussions with the mindset everything is negotiable. Every fantasy manager values players differently. For example, ask your trade partner to rank your players and their players in a given position to get a better understanding of how they value each. Knowing this can help in negotiations, because if your partner's rankings differ from your own, you now may have more leverage in negotiating a trade. Remaining strength of schedule, or difficulty of remaining games, and upcoming or past bye weeks are important to consider as well. A favorable or unfavorable fantasy playoff schedule can be something to consider. Focus on opponent ranking versus that position. And a player who has already had their bye week should be viewed with greater value than a player who has yet to be on bye. All right, well, hopefully this video was informative and helpful for you people who are new to fantasy football. We're happy to have you here. Thank you for watching the video, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.